Hey you guys, it's Shannon and I'm here with my friend Chantel, and something really like scary and crazy happened to her, and she was sharing this story with me, and I said, oh my god, Chantel, can we please make a video about this, because I feel like more people need to hear this. She died and like came back to life, and she saw something that I've always like struggled with. Like,
me too.
Yeah. Like I always just thought when you die, like you die and there's nothing there, and like you don't know it, and your life is over.
Yes, I would go back and forth on whether that would be what happened, and it was just done. And we were talking about how somehow that gave me anxiety too, which it shouldn't, because then you're just gone. But it did.
So she's gonna tell us, so tell us all about, like, or tell me like your story.
Okay, so I'm gonna back up a little, because the incident happened October 26th, I believe, of 2021.
Okay.
And it's 22 right now. Yeah. So last year, we had moved to a new place, a new town in the desert, and I was changing all of my doctors around at the time, and the kids were starting school. It was September. I had to switch to a cardiologist. I do have a small hole in my heart. It's called a PFO, but it was nothing that anyone had ever worried about. They said it's actually 25% of us have it.
How did you find out that you had that?
I had went in years, right before COVID actually, I had went into the doctor, because I would feel sometimes when I was like driving, or I would be like going to lay down to sleep, and I would feel like almost like I'd like lose a heart, like my heart would beat, and then I would like, it would feel like it dropped a little.
Yeah, I get that sometimes.
Yeah, and so you're like, I get that too.
Now I have a hole in my heart. Now I got
Yeah, we get it. Yeah. So I'd feel this like weird feeling, and I was like, I'm dying, of course. So I like went in and I talked to the doctor then, right before COVID. They did an external echo, which is where they look at the outside of your heart. And they found it. There was this tiny little hole, but nothing, they said, that would be bothersome. No big deal. Move on. You're good to go. I didn't really I Googled, I was going into open heart surgery, like the whole I'd already like planned for all of that, but he said, no, it's fine. You're good. Then when we moved out here after COVID, the doctor wanted to do another one, so he sent me in, and it wasn't the doctor who looked at it, like did an ultrasound, it was like a tech. So that doctor in September did an ultrasound of my heart, and to look at the PFO, and no one said anything. And then weeks later, that's how it works when you go to specialists, like weeks later, they give you a call and they schedule your appointment. And I went back in, and when I went to the cardiologist, this was sometime in like late September, I believe. The cardiologist brought me into the office and was like, can you come in my room, my private room? And I was like, oh, this sounds horrible. I was like, yeah, sure. And so he sits me down and he goes, you won't believe this if I show it to you, or if I tell you, so I have to show it to you. So he pulls up the CD like of this ultrasound, and I'm looking at it, and he's like, do you see this blob right here of like white? And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Were you like thinking, oh my god, do I have cancer? Or like, what were you thinking?
Well, I knew it was my heart. So to be honest, I wasn't thinking, like I was like, oh, he figured out what it is that is doing this weird thing.
Okay.
But for the most part, I was not expecting him to say what he said, which was that he didn't call it a tumor, but he pointed to it and told me that he believed that it was I think he said a growth or something. I think that's what he called it. And like immediately I started crying, because immediately I was like going home to say goodbye to my children and everything, you know, I'm dying. No, but in all seriousness, I was like, I cried in that moment, but it was purely out of like, like they finally figured out what's going on. It didn't really hit me like how the seriousness of having a tumor on your heart. Like it didn't hit me yet. I was more so crying out of just like finally someone's figuring out what's been going on with me, because my health has always had like its ups and downs. So I was like, okay, we figured it out. So he said, I need to schedule this immediately. So my echo was in September. So now we're moving into October is when, so how it works is like you get your echo, the ultrasound, you get a call like weeks later. They're like, it took forever for them to even call me. And then I had to schedule it with this guy. And then that was like 3 weeks later. So we're into October at this point. Yeah.
Okay,
this is a whole process.
Yeah. So there was a tumor like growing on your heart, and they didn't even call you until 2 weeks later.
Yeah, it was, yes, it was like a whole, I don't know if he had just looked even at the, like he's just pulling it up to go and was like, oh crap, like this is important.
That must have been what happened.
Yeah, but honestly, like the healthcare system, and I mean, I could go on a tangent about how awful it is dealing with specialists because they're so backed up, especially after COVID. The heart doctors especially, it's like insane trying to get into any cardiologist. So he brings me in, he says that, and he goes, we are going to do a procedure. It's very quick. It's like 15 minutes. We're going to do it in the hospital. We're going to put a little camera down your throat and take a look, like get a better look at this tumor. So I'm like, okay, perfect. When are we going to do this? He's like, it's going to be the following Monday. So I went home. I think that was a Friday. I went home. I called I actually just made a group of girlfriends at the time who were at my kids go to a private Christian school. And I had just made the appointment, or I had just made friends with them. And I was going to some Bible studies and like hanging out with them. And I remember I texted them that day, and like immediately they were like, I remember I got out of the car to pick the kids up and they were like bawling, like crying. And I was like, I mean, I knew that it was a big deal, but like seeing them, I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. You know? like I remember like, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is happening. Everyone's freaking out. Like we're going down, you know? And they just hugged me. And I remember I like turned around and I was like, I want to get baptized. Can we do this on, I think it was like that following Sunday, because I knew on Monday or Tuesday the hospital was going to call me to schedule this procedure. And so I ended up getting baptized. Maybe I think it was Sunday, like 3 days later, I got baptized, and it was so amazing, so special in itself, and that could be a whole nother story. But it was really weird because I got baptized, and then that Monday came around, the Tuesday came around, and I didn't get a phone call from the hospital. So I started calling and was like, what's going on? Like, this is supposed to be important. Like, why aren't we getting into the hospital to do this? You know, like tumor, hello, we need to hurry. I'm dying. And then they called back and they said there was some scheduling conflicts and that it would be like, I believe the following Tuesday. So now we're going into like the 25th. I would be done. That following Tuesday was like the 25th or 26th of October. So I was like, I remember everyone was like, no, get on the phone with them, immediately tell them like that's not going to work, you know, they need to get you in right away. But after I had gotten baptized, it was like God had just like, it was almost like, it was honestly being like on Xanax for 10 days. Like, I don't know if it was shock or what, but like, I really truly believe that it was just God, like he had completely covered me and was like, you're going to be fine. And I just remember continually hearing that whole week, it's not a tumor. It's not a tumor. You're fine. Or not, it's not a tumor, but like there's not going to be anything there. Mm-hmm. There's nothing there. And if you would have seen on the screen, I mean, it was a white blob. Like your heart on this echo, you're not supposed to see anything but black pretty much, and there's a white blob on it. So this would have been a miracle in itself. So then everyone's freaking out and I'm like totally calm. I'm like, no, it's fine. Next Tuesday it is. It's supposed to be next Tuesday, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. Like, I know everyone's freaked out, but if it's supposed to be next Tuesday and that's what God wants, we're gonna do it. You know, He has a plan for everything. So that Tuesday, I woke up so calm, in the best mood ever. I go to the hospital. We have to get there really early, at like 6 in the morning. I go to the hospital. They start setting me up. They're doing a light anesthesia, so they're kind of like setting everything up and putting me under, but the doctor is nowhere to be found. Everyone's freaking out because this doctor is never late. He does 2 procedures a day. He's never late. And the nurses are like, I'm so sorry, I've called him twice, I don't know what's going on. And at this point, we're almost an hour late. And I'm just like lying there waiting. My husband's in this like little waiting room off the corner. And at that time I was listening. I remember one of the weird things was I was listening to Christian music. Like I was listening to worship music on my phone, and I turned it off because I didn't want my phone to die. I'm really bad at charging it. And my husband was in the room. I wanted to be able to text him as soon as I was done. And so I turned the phone off, and there was this guy sitting in the corner. He wasn't a part of the team that was working on me. He was like a rogue nurse. And I remember I saw him, like instantly when I came into the room, I had like this weird thing with this nurse. I was like God was literally like telling me like to focus on this nurse. And so I turned my phone off, I stopped playing the worship music, and I'm getting ready, we're still waiting on the doctor, and then all of a sudden worship music starts playing over the intercom, which is like so not like a hospital, by the way, because we're talking about worship music, you know, that I feel like people are like a little iffy about putting stuff like that on. And we'll come back to him in a second. So it starts playing, and then the lady tells me, oh, there was a mix-up. He thought that the morning appointment canceled, and it was really the afternoon. So he'll be here in like 5 minutes. Okay. So the doctor like walks in. It's an hour and like 5 minutes after it was supposed to start, and he walks in. He comes to the bedside. Right before then too, right before he got there, the anesthesiologist starts hooking some more stuff up to me, and goes, oh, I have extra time. He's like, and then he makes comment about like, don't worry, this is just in case you stop breathing, but you're not going to. And he was like he was extra getting set up because he had all this time. So anyways, the doctor an hour and like 5 minutes later walks in and comes to the bedside. He goes, you know what we're doing today? I go, yes, we're going in, we're looking at this. And I go, but God told me nothing's in there. And he literally looked at me like, poor girl. Like he did, and it probably honestly internally stressed me out a little bit because of what followed. So he starts, he goes, okay, we're gonna get ready, he tells me what he's gonna do. He's gonna put the little camera down my throat, and he has the stuff ready. The anesthesiologist starts putting Versed into my thing, like my, what would you call that? Like,
IV?
Yeah, my IV. And I'm just laying there, and I'm like really calm. And then all of a sudden I start feeling this excruciating pain down my arm, and like from here down, and I start yelling, and I'm like it was instantaneously. I start going, something's wrong, you have to stop, something's going on. And he's looking at the chart, or like not my chart, but my
your heart monitor?
My heart monitor, and he's going, okay, just breathe. And I didn't know at the time, but he was watching my heart rate. It was rising and rising, and it was going into 150, 160, 180, and then 200. And at that point I blacked out. So that's the last thing that I personally was aware of. So at that time, from the other perspective is, so now I'm blacked out on the table, and my heart goes into ventricular tachycardia, which what they call that is like sudden death. You do not survive ventricular tachycardia. The only way to survive ventricular tachycardia, the kind that I had, is to be laying on a hospital bed with a cardiologist, an anesthesiologist, an extra doctor, a team full of nurses hooked up to a breathing machine and ready to go on life support. And I was exactly that. I was hooked up to all of those things. I flatlined. They used a defibrillator. The defibrillator got my heart pumping again, and got the beats back to normal, but my heart wasn't pumping anything else. So your heart is what gets you to breathe. It's what goes to your brain, it goes to your organs. Nothing was working. So they instantly, once he worked on me and got my heart back, they had to put me on life support and a ventilator, because I was not breathing on my own. So that was nuts. I don't know what that looked. Ryan said he saw me for a second, and he was like, you were just like lifeless on the table. So he hooks me up to life support. They're doing it. There's a code blue. My husband's on the phone working in the other room, so he doesn't even hear the code blue. And the nurses said that they were so sure that it wasn't me, that they thought it was a mistake because I was so healthy and joyful coming in. I was like in the best mood, and they were like, there's no way this young 34-year-old girl is dying right now. So they like hesitated to even run in there. But they did, and they saved my life.
Oh, my battery's dying.
Oh, no,
it's okay. No, it's fine. Just let me know when that shuts off.
Okay, I'll let you know.
And then I can put a new one.
So, anyway, so they put me on life support, and I'm on life support till 5:30. And
Wait, how long was that?
so that ended around 7:30. I'm put on life support. So this all happened within like a very short amount of time.
Wait, but how long were you on? Wait, so
I was on life
in the morning?
from like 7:30 in the morning till like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. I'm on life support with a ventilator. So at 5:30ish, I start waking up, and the nurses don't know that I'm waking up at this point.
Okay.
I just start, I'm like, see these people around me, and I go to talk, and I realize I cannot say any words. And I go, okay, something's going on. These people, there's stuff everywhere, lights blinking. Like, I'm in ICU. So I'm in like, there's nurses walking around. And I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to talk, but I can't. And something's wrong. And I know something has happened at this point. And I did remember that like something was going on, you know, prior to me blacking out. And so I kind of like doze off a little bit, and then I start to wake up again. And this time I'm like, okay, so I need to, so I start like petting the nurses, and I'm just like, but my hands are like, they're hooked to the side. So apparently I was like trying to fight them and pull my ventilator out at one point, so they had to like handcuff me to the bed. So I start like petting her arm, like, please let me off of this thing. I need to talk, you know, like get this out. So in like one swoop, within like minutes, a bunch of people came in because I was waking up, and then they just pulled out this huge tube, like, which was like.
Was that painful? Do you remember?
It was more like shocking than painful.
Yeah.
And so they pull out the tube, and like instantly I'm like gabbing. They're like, do you know what happened? I'm like, yes, kind of, because I knew what had happened prior. So they're like, you're in ICU. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I start like getting a little emotional because I'm like, my husband's there. And so like, he like walks over, he's holding my hand, and they like come in, and the doctors come in because I'm awake, and they start telling me, I have 3 doctors. They're all telling me what happened to me. And, they're like, you know, they said die, but they're like, but you're not dead, you know. So, you know, I'm sure that some medical people will be like, you didn't die, but, you know, this same thing, like, yeah. And so it took me a little bit, but not long, before I was making phone calls and like on the phone and like scaring the crap out of everyone. Everyone looked like they had seen a ghost. They all said that they had never, ever, ever seen someone go through what I did and come off okay and wonderful, like with like, hey, what's going on, kind of like wanting to talk and tell what happened so quickly. Like, I mean, they literally looked blue in the face, like just walking in, like, oh my gosh, they were like creeped out. They were like, what is this woman, like, yeah. So they were all coming in, and I would be like, it's okay, were you in there, you know, like all day. But anyway, so my husband sits down, I get like 1 second to like kind of like talk, and I mean, the first thing out of my mouth was like, I like met God. Like, that was all I mean, I remember my mom called right away, and I was on speaker, and I remember that the first thing out of my mouth was just like, I mean, when I say like a cry that you've never experienced, like it was just weeping, because I couldn't believe the experience that I had, and that was like instantly like coming out, or coming off of life support. So my experience, which is wild, is that, you know, when I was in that moment, I was taken somewhere, and I assume heaven. I will say this, just as because I'm sure some people are going to be like, well, that's what you would imagine. Well, no, this is not what I would imagine. In fact, what I would have been in my subconscious of imagining would have been that, like, I would have went to heaven, and Jesus was there, and my grandma, and like anyone who passed, and it would have been something like that. But that was not my experience. My experience was just being on, like, literally, I just remember this shining light that was so, like, there was no end to it. It was so, it was definitely a male presence, and it was just this like beaming light and this heavy feeling. I just remember there was like something to the left of me, like some kind of shadow. I'm not sure what it was, but I know it was like some kind of person or somebody. But that wasn't my main focus. It was just this beaming light, and then like just like falling down on, like you can't even, you just fall to your knees and you start weeping and you're just like crying like you've never cried, and you're so humbled by this person or this, you know, God, just like, because it's like such a strong, I mean, it like, you feel it in your entire body, this warmth and wonderfulness, and then you're just like weeping just at the fact that it's real and that he is who he says he is, and you're feeling how much he loves you, and you're literally like weeping for him too, at like, I know this is going to sound weird, but like almost like the life you lived, not that you're not like feeling any shame or anything like that. You're literally crying because you suddenly feel how much he loves you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it makes sense now, and you get it. And then all of those things, you're actually like feeling how sad he is that you went through any of those things. And I was just like, I mean, just on the ground weeping. And then, you know, I don't remember this part, but when I did come to and I was back, I felt like I had been like downloaded with like almost everything that I had in my subconscious, things you question your whole entire life, like all of it suddenly made complete sense. And then one of the weirdest things like coming back was, and I was just telling Shannon this earlier, was that my eyesight, I mean, I don't have good eyes, so let's start there. I already have bad eyes. But if you've ever been like sunburned or like looked at the sun one day and like your eye, like I literally had like it was as if my eyes had been sunburned, and it was really wild. I mean, nothing had happened to me that would make my eyes sunburned, but it was almost like I was still affected after from the brightness of him, and it was hard to unsee too. Like every time I would like I just saw him everywhere after that. And then moving into like getting out of the hospital, I left. Well, the very next day, I woke up and they had wanted to put a defibrillator and an implanted device in me. I have a pacemaker and a defibrillator, and then I was too scared to go under again, because even though we didn't know what had happened, I was like, there's no way. And they were like, we've never done this procedure without someone being put under like that, or like something in them. And I was like, no, I don't want anything in me. So the next day, and I remember like, he was completely with me. Like he was like, you're gonna be fine. And I went in, and they literally like cut me open, I have like these wires that go into that are pushed into my heart. They put the defibrillator is the size of like a deck of cards. They did that all with just like some lidocaine shots. And I was like, I'm telling you, you don't do that without God. But it was like completely, like I could feel everything. And I was just like,
You weren't scared to do that?
I don't know how to, I was not human for the first 3 weeks. Like I can't explain it. I was like not here. Like I was like, I was here, but I was just not even human. I was still like in this in between. And so I remember I was just saying like, I can do hard things, like the whole time that he was putting it in. And they like could not believe that. They were like, they had the IV ready because they were like sure that I was going to, and the pain was so bad at one point, the only thing they put in my IV was nausea meds, because if you've ever like that kind of excruciating pain will make you vomit. Sick, yeah. So that was the only thing that they had to inject a little bit of that, because I was like, the pain was like, I was gonna barf. But so then I got that, and then I left the very next day. So then they kept me another night just to watch everything, and then I left the very next day. And I was like, everyone was so worried about me, but I was like on cloud 9. And for 3 weeks, I mean, I remember like driving, and I would drive to like stoplights, and I would just be like sitting at the stoplight, and it was like the whole world looked different. Like I would just cry because I saw things so differently. Like it's so many things that we think. It's funny because there's this, you know, I mean, some that grow up in a church or grow up in Christianity or whatever religion you're in, and you know, they have a lot of expectations and things you want to do or what you can't do, and until like this moment, I'd always been like questioning that, like, well, you know, why does he, you know, he has all these rules and then I'm gonna feel bad about them, and if he loved me, then why would I feel bad, you know, why would I feel shame or anything like that? And it's not shame, it's not this being, or it's not God feeling that like he's so upset and sad for you. It's not like he's like, I don't know if that makes sense. I'm probably going to botch this, but
no, you're doing great.
But he's just so sad for you. And it hurts him so much because the things he's put in place, the things that we think are so wild in this world that he would ask of us are, if, you know, you take out what you hear about, oh, well, that's, you know, those are rules and things and you don't want to listen to them because you know, we're free people and we can do whatever we want. If you actually like break it down, I mean, I see things so differently now, and it's like, well, if you actually followed this rule, then these things wouldn't happen, or vice versa. And like, I feel like after my experience, I feel this like complete sadness for him. So I'd be at stoplights and I'd be looking around. I'm like, I can't believe everyone's just driving around in their car, acting like everything's fine, going about their Tuesday, walking through TJ Maxx, you know, and they don't know.
Yeah.
And I was so scared. Like, I felt like, oh my gosh, everyone has to know. Like, everyone has to know that he's so real. And I just remember too having this feeling like, if that is so...
Okay, sorry guys, my camera literally just died, but it died at the perfect time because she was just telling us like the end, and she was saying how like it's so okay, I have a question. When you died, like on the table,
Yeah.
and you said like you saw like a bright light, did you, I don't know, I guess like, I'm trying to think of like, how did you know it was God? Could you just feel it?
Oh, it was God.
So you just like,
Yeah,
it was like
like-
overwhelming, like you just
Oh,
knew.
he was like, I don't know how, he didn't talk, but like he made himself known. Like, it is a big, I mean, it's like nothing we've ever experienced in our entire lives. Like, I mean, it's
So
really
God's
crazy.
real.
God is so real. Like,
Oh my
God
God.
is so real. And I don't think that I come from like, I don't know like how to explain it, but like I feel like I'm not coming from a place of like, oh, my entire life I've just been like, I'm just like uber Christian, and like this is, you know, this is, I'm surprised. I think every day I'm like, why me? Like, and I have had so many things happen since then that I get it. It makes sense to me.
Like what?
It would be hard to explain, but like I know I believe that God does a lot of things to get to other people. And I had already been on this journey where I was like already finding him. Like me and him, we were gonna make it work. I was there. I'd already like really changed my life so much over the years, and becoming a mom, and I had really like, I just changed my life in all aspects. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, if that's a thing. But like I was trying my best to be a good person, and it was coming.
You're a great
I
person.
know. But I was getting there to where like that other aspect of it was coming. It was like, hey, I'm doing all of this, and I'm feeling a real pull towards him. So I knew that was coming. But I really think that this happened. It's gonna sound so weird, but I think it happened, and at least what he's told me, because I do feel like he speaks to me, is that he did it for my husband. And if you know my husband, which you kind of do, I mean, my husband is extremely smart. A lot of people, he's very successful. A lot of people go, and he used to be really, really super Christian. He's been to Haiti, he's helped, or he's done the whole thing, you know, and then he kind of like fell out of that. And, you know, he has a lot of success, he's very smart, and a lot of people look up to him and they really listen to him because he is so educated. And we just have had, I don't know, I feel like God kind of put me in that situation to show my husband this miracle. Because again, it's not my story, it's God. This is what he did. But I think he did that to get my husband, and he did. And my husband has completely done a 180, and he is, I mean, my husband is, you know, praying before he goes to bed and talking to God and like doing all these things, and I'm like, he told me, like, I did that, like, I moved this, I did this miracle because I needed him, because now, you know, my husband, he talks to people, he talks to friends, he talks to a lot of people who are successful and important, and then, you know, going down this road will show a lot of people, you know, it all makes sense. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
So God,
No, it's like influential people.
Yes, yeah, and then his friend, you know, and it's, the story gets told, and having my husband feel that way and back it up and be where he is spiritually now is like a big deal. And I'm like, okay, God, I see you. You know, at first I was like, was I saved because I'm going to be like a woman pastor? No, I don't think that's the thing. But I was like, am I going to start a church? Is it because I'm supposed to write a book? Am I supposed to like go around? And he's like, simmer down. Like, he's like, you know. But the funny thing is that after I had a lot of guilt for having, you know, when I started going down like the road of, you know, helping people and really like trying to like, you know, act on this new, you know, life I wanted to have. I wanted to be able to give back and stuff, and I started feeling really, I wanted to sell the house. I wanted to move into an RV. And I was like, okay, we're selling everything. We don't need any of this. This is too much. Let's stop working and give all of our money away. And like, I don't want this because, you know. And I was literally like crying one day, and I'm driving, and I'm like, ah, and I'm crying, and I'm like, God, like, I feel so guilty, so worried, and I was like, oh, we're doing it wrong, you know. And God was like, no, your husband's successful because of you. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he was like, for one, he does have a sense of humor, but he was like, for one, only you would be crying when you were poor. And he's like, and now I give you this, and you're crying again, and you're like, you know, you're like, woe is me. And he's like, I answered your prayers. They may have not come when you were, you know. A little background is that, you know, I was literally, my mom had me when she was 18 or 19. My dad was a drug addict. We lived in a trailer. My mom literally lived in a trailer at the time, in a mobile home, when I was born, with his whole family, and his parents and stuff. And, you know, we struggled. I had a really hard, difficult life with a lot of hard, traumatizing things happening. And, you know, I did talk to God a lot, and I did, you know, so it was just funny. Because he was like, and I tell my husband that now when he, like, you know, audits my bank account. I go, this is not your money, this is mine, you know? But it's true, in the sense that, like, it's funny that I thought he saved me for me, and I know now, like, he saved me to get him, and then, you know, having him tell me, like, stop feeling, not that we don't feel differently now, and we, you know, definitely make it a point. We have, you know, my husband has written out an entire nonprofit that he wants to do, and that's definitely the direction we want to go into. But the guilt is a little less, because he was just like, you know, I don't do anything. I mean, he does, nothing is done. And that was one of the things, that download that he gave me, was just that there is nothing that is done without him being involved in. You know, nothing.
That's powerful.
It is. It's really powerful, and it makes you it just makes everything kind of do a full circle and completely make sense. And even like the trials you go through, horrible things, losing. I mean, there's so many horrible things that happen. But I think you would, if you talk to a lot of people down the road, they would. It takes time sometimes to kind of know, well, why did that happen? And if you're not looking, and you're not looking like, where is God working right here? You might not see it. But I think it's really healing if you do go down that path and you find God, to kind of sit with Him and try to figure out, like, okay, what was the purpose behind that? Because I will tell you, one thing that I know always happens, and I feel like you might know this too, is like, you will always tend to find people who, like, you'll be sick with something, and you'll just happen to either run into people who are having the same symptoms, and you'll be able to, like, tell them and help them, or you'll find someone else who has that, or maybe you were abused as a child, and then I feel like I have like a radar. Every girl that's, you know, ever had an uncle touch you or anything, I tend to find, and then I'm like, oh, okay, like I get it. And those are the moments, and I've really taken a different spin on that. And instead of looking at it like, you know, oh, this happened to me, I'm like, oh, this happened for me. Because, and I know that's a really hard thing to wrap your head around for some people, but it's really true. Like, there's so many things that I have now looked at, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Because our whole goal here is, or at least what I believe, and after having this moment, it's just, you know, we're all just like walking each other home. I think that's the best. This is not home. That if anything, I came out, go, this is not it, you know. This is not the end all be all. There's something way bigger for us. And so I think that's why there's tragedy and things here and things testing us, is because we're just becoming a better version of ourselves. And then, you know, we get to go there as that person who like knows how to be better, and, you know, we get to enjoy life. And, you know, I do believe that there's this like never ending life that we get to go to. And I feel like there's this big table waiting for us to all sit at. And, you know, I, you know, don't want to be quiet about it, because the thought that someone's going to miss out on that is like sad. So sad. It like literally makes me emotional thinking about it, because I just don't ever want that for anyone, you know. Anyways,
that is such a beautiful story. I love that. It makes me feel so much, like literally takes my anxiety away, just like knowing that like there's life after death, and that not just even that, but like there's someone up there that like the way that you like describe it, where he just like feels sad for us and all the things we're going through. I feel like so many of us go through so many hard things, or we're so guilty of things that we've done in our past, or like we feel bad about, and to know that like he feels sad for us instead of like it's not guilt. Like,
I like one more thing before the end is to remember, like, God is not, you know, he's not sitting there with you when you're at your most I didn't get baptized my entire life because I had literally just like saved it up for this I had in my head I needed to be like the perfect mom, the perfect wife. I had the perfect sundress on. My hair was not in this messy bun. I was living my best life, and then I was going to come to God, and then I was going to say, God, I'm here, baptize me, you know? And that's not where God is. God was with me getting baptized when I was crying, when I thought a tumor was, oh, we didn't get to that part.
What?
The biggest part is that when I was on life support, they put the camera down there, and when they were looking around, there was no tumor. There was nothing in there.
Oh my gosh.
The only way I could have survived this was in that situation. So when you, and moving back to that is like, if your appointment is canceled, if your tire on the side of the road pops and you were on your way somewhere, like, he is in every little thing. He is doing it all. Like, don't take those moments and go, oh gosh, you know, because there's a plan. You might have missed, you know, an accident. You may have, like, he's doing so many things just to, you know, make sure we're okay. And so I look at those things a lot differently now, because had my appointment not done that, and then he wasn't an hour late, like, anywhere I could have been and that would have happened, I would have died. So, but anyways,
that's
amazing.
I love it. I love all of it. I'm so happy like I was able to come here and you're telling me the story in person, because I wanted to hear it so bad. I'm like, just tell me, but I'm glad, like, because I feel like I got to hear it way more, like, being here. I love it. And something very exciting is that she is actually going to baptize me.
I know, which is like so exciting.
And I'm so grateful. She's like, oh, you should come here with them. I'm like, yes, because I don't feel comfortable with like someone else doing it, because they don't like really know me, and I feel like it's not the same.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's like extra special too, because I think that there's something like in that moment that's just so cleansing, and I feel like, except for the haters out there, I feel like people don't understand like how much your life has changed and how different it is. Oh, our babies are all
It's like perfect timing.
Yeah, but like I think it's just so. It's just, I want you to show it to everyone, and I want you to have that moment that I had, because I also didn't have a perfect life, and we have a lot of a similar background, and like, you know, I think that that's just, it's like there's a little extra to it, because you're just like, hey, if God's got her, like, it doesn't matter, you know?
I love it. You guys want to come say hi?
Oh, Bryn, you're so right.
Hi, everyone.
He's getting hot and
Story.
tired.
Yeah, he's ready for it now.
Thank you, Chantel, for being here. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm sending you all my love and all my positive energy, and I hope to see you in my next video.
Moving on and let go. Add color into your soul. Now life's like a movie. Camera pose one time for the girl, Channon Rose.